Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Cemal Kündüsen Yücel. I'm the leader and founder of organization Ex-Muslims of Norway. First of all, on behalf of Ex-Muslims of Norway, I would like to thank the Fritt Ord Foundation for their support of this seminar. This seminar is our first of the 3 seminars which we will have in this autumn. The 9th of September, we will have the ex-Muslim atheist and the author of the book, The Curse of God, Why I Left Islam. Author is Haris Sultan from Australia. And the 22 September, we will have the president of ex-Muslims of North America, Mohammed Said here. I want to remind you that this seminar will be live streamed via our Facebook page, and later it will be posted on our YouTube channel. Today, our honored guest is the Danish Iranian blogger, Islam critic, and author of the book Public Secrets of Islam, İslam's offentlige hemmeligheter, Jaleh Tavakoli. She has a fearless and honest voice who calls a spade for a spade in a dishonest and polarized debate climate which unfortunately we have in the West. When we're talking about Islam in the West. So that brings negative consequences to the messenger. Jaleh Tavakoli's honest criticism of Islam, mainstream media, and political correctness in the West cost her a lot in Denmark today. The book's title, Public Secrets of Islam, clearly insinuates that the conversation about Islam is limited by public secrets, and that is why the book has set itself to reveal. The book argues that non-Muslims as well as modern Muslims should be critical of mainstream Islam. You heard right, mainstream Islam. We have to have a critical conversation about Islam in the West, and we must relate to religion exactly as it is. The book is a fact book. This book is a fact book that explains the obstacles to the honest conversation about Islam. It dares to set the right definition on terms such as Islamist, moderates, radicals, or jihadists. It addresses many important issues that clash with modern Western values, including Islam and women, integration, holy war, honor culture, and negative social control, both in a theological and cultural perspective. It's a very important book that is not only educational, but it is also comes with solutions that I think especially every politician in the West have to read. Every politician should be forced to read it. A must-read book that I recommend everyone who is concerned with the debate climate around Islam, integration, terror, and most importantly, our future. Okay. Today, me and our vice leader, Janet, are the hosts. First, Jaleh Tavakoli will have a lecture. After that, Janet, and I will be on the stage and have a short conversation. Then it's time for questions from the audience. We have limited numbers of books of Jaleh with us today. They are in the downstairs in a bookshop. So you can buy if you didn't buy yet. And you have opportunity to get signed by her. Now I want to invite Jaleh here. Let's give a warm welcome. Welcome, Jaleh. Please, mic is yours.
Thank you so much, Jamal, for the very, very nice introduction. My name is Jaleh Tavakoli, and I, as Jamal already told you, am an author of the book Public Secrets of Islam. And I'll start saying a little bit about the book and a lot about myself. So that's new, but I'll explain why later. My book is obviously critical of Islam, and it's a mixture of explaining mainstream theological Islam and an analysis of what is going on in the West regarding the debate about Islam and all of the obstacles around that. So the book is about Islam's problems with the West, really, and also with freedom, democracy, and modernity. Mainstream Islam is mentioned a lot in the book, and this is because I don't think that a concept as Islamism is enough, or it's really kind of misleading to talk about Islamism, because mainstream Islam is Islamism, or Islamism is really mainstream Islam. And mainstream Islam is the literal approach to Islam, literal approach to the Quran, the holy book of Muslims, and the ahadith, which are the writings about the life of the Prophet, and the seerah, that is the biography of the Prophet Muhammad. And you need to read these things all together to understand what mainstream Islam is theologically, because there's a concept in Islam that is named abrogation, and abrogation is about the fact that if there are two different points of view in the Quran, for instance, in Quran it says that alcohol is permitted, and then it says alcohol is forbidden. So what is the truth to Muslims? So they see what the Prophet did throughout his life, and what he did later in his life. That is what counts in mainstream Islamic theology, and therefore alcohol is forbidden in Islam. And also, therefore, we have all of the problems with violence and wars and so on, because the Prophet of Islam, he waged war later on in his life. So all of the ayahs in the Quran that are about the wars and the violence and so on, they mostly came afterwards. So this is what counts. The violence counts more than the more peaceful times and peaceful ayahs in the Quran. So this is why we have a problem with the violence theologically and theoretically, but also as we see it now in the West and also all around the world in real life. Then we have reformers, and this is also why I use the concept mainstream Islam and just don't say Islam, because there are few, but they are there, and they are very brave Muslims who will not accept the literal approach to the text, to the Quran, to the Hadith, and so on. And they are also called infidels, kuffars, and they're seen as ex-Muslims or pretend Muslims, because they challenge the literalist approach to Islam. So they are at risk at the same way that I am or other ex-Muslims are whenever we stick our heads out and are in the public debate. So they are the reformers, and the reformers cannot have a literalist approach, not even to the Quran, because a literalist approach means that everything is correct, what's in the Quran, and that it is the God's perfect words. So you cannot have that point of view and be a real reformist, in my opinion, because you have, sex slavery is legitimized by the Quran, for instance. Jihad is as well. Mainstream Islam does not, unfortunately, mainstream Islam unfortunately does have the power today. The powerful actors in Islam, the big groups, sects, schools of thought, and so on, they belong to the mainstream Islam, the literalists. And then you have the few modernists or reformists challenging them. And this is, of course, this has many reasons, and reformers have always been there, also from, I believe that reformists have always been there, but they are always threatened, killed, or, they don't get to say their opinion. They're being threatened even today in the Western world. Now the rest of my speech is going to be about me. I hope that you don't find this narcissistic, because I am being I'm being blamed for being a narcissist by a social authority in Denmark already. I was born in Iran. My father fled Iran as a political refugee. I have been critical of Islam ever since I stepped into the public debate since 2003. And really, I started being critical from 2007. Because I would still travel to Iran, so I had to watch a little bit of what I was saying, because I wanted to document some of the things going on in Iran at that time. I wrote a couple of maybe 10 or 15 articles about what was going on in Iran, more objectively, when I was going back and forth to Iran. Then I stopped that in 2008, and then I was more honest. And in 2009, the protests in Iran and so on, I was the spokesperson for Free Iran in Denmark, and then I decided I cannot go back to Iran anymore. So it's not safe for me to go back. In 2015, I survived an Islamic terrorist attack in Copenhagen. We had a Lars Vilks committee. We had he's a Swedish Mohammed drawer, and we had a meeting about freedom of speech and the Mohammed drawings, and also other topics of political art. And then this ISIS terrorist, or he swore to the al-Baghdadi, who is the leader of ISIS, before coming in and tried to kill us. He also killed one of the attendees to the meeting, who went outside and probably then was shot dead. Because of this, I received threats, and a social authority in charge of foster parents licensing in Denmark is now threatening me and my family because I receive threats from Islamists. My oldest is 8 years old, and she's legally a foster child. We got her when she was 2 days old, and she's always been with us, and she's happy and healthy and living her best life. There's nothing wrong. She doesn't know about the threats. She's secure, and she has never been affected by the fact that I get threats. She doesn't know really anything about Islam. She's starting to ask questions about Iran, so now she's maybe starting to learn a little bit, but she's not involved in my activities. She is not affected by my job as a writer, blogger, and so on. But this social authority also says that they're not concerned about our child, but they're concerned generally because I'm a foster parent, and that my job is not compatible with the fact that I'm also a foster parent because I receive threats from Islamists. They know that she's fully integrated, and the municipality in charge of the case knows that she's happy and healthy, so there is nothing there to point at when it comes to her well-being. The social authority has now put us under increased supervision. And in their report they write, and I quote, in relation to the work of the foster mom as a journalist and blogger, and the social supervisory authority does not find it in principle worrying. However, the work of the foster parents, if the work of the foster parents negatively affects the family's overall security and stability, the social supervisory authority must deal with this. The social supervisory authority therefore notes that the foster family has felt compelled to have a protected address, as well as name protection as they experience hatred against the foster mom. As a foster family, you are required to offer a foster child safe and stable conditions, which is not compatible with putting yourself and your family at risk. They also write in the same report that, and I quote, the social supervisory authority finds it worrying that the foster mother has difficulty distinguishing a foster child's need for security and stability and her own ambitions to share her own opinions with the public, which puts her family's safety at risk. They also, in one of the reports, call me a narcissist for talking about surviving the terrorist attack in 2015 in the public debate. When I objected the name calling, they erased the narcissist part, and then they put another sentence in instead, and I quote, the foster mom has a limited perspective on the cases in which she involves herself in. So now, a social authority in Denmark has concluded that I, as an Islam critic, have a limited perspective on the cases I involve myself in. This means I write about or I have commentary on. And this I can't understand really. And but it's on paper, it's real, and it's out there, and it's documented. When I asked the supervisory authority whether I am putting myself at risk, the leader of the organization said, but you tell us yourself that you receive threats. Then I said, but am I putting myself at risk in this situation? Am I to blame? And then she said, but you tell us you receive threats. So that's her opinion. So I told her that her attitude is the same victim blaming as when a woman gets raped, and then people talk about whether she was wearing too short of a skirt or whether she was drinking. She couldn't understand the comparison. Therefore, I have now given up my blog at Jyllandsposten, where I had been writing for many years, since 2010, and I have also stepped out of the public debate altogether. This pains me, of course, and now even being here might be used against me and problematized, but I had this arrangement with Jamal. We were talking about me coming last year, and then I was pregnant, and it didn't really fit into the plan, so we had this plan long time before this ever happened. So this is why I'm here, and I'm very happy to be here. And one good thing, though, that has come out of this is that I now have proof that I had a real job, because my husband would always tease me, get a real job because of the low earnings doing what I do. So I can say now, I had a real job. My job was a problem. So I have to find something to laugh about in this situation, because the situation is Kafkaesque. It's hard to understand that this is reality in Denmark, my new country, the free country my father fled to as a political refugee. And the reason why he fled Iran is now the reason why I don't have my freedom of speech. And the violent and intolerant Islamists have won yet again, and the Iranian embassy must be joyful. I don't think that a politically correct person would ever have to go through what I have been through. I don't think that a foster mom who had refugees welcome signs and got threats from the right wing would ever have to experience this, and nor should anyone experience this. As long as you do not incite violence or criminal acts, you should be free to say whatever you want. Free speech is the pillar of our free societies. And in my book, I also warn against the persecution of Islam critics in the West, and now it has hit me, and I realized that I wasn't even prepared for this. And Jamal, yesterday, he asked me, he showed me the picture pages in my book, and he said, "You wrote this before this happened to you, right?" And I said, "Yes, I wrote this before this happened to me." And I both write about the fact that our authorities have started not telling us the truth whenever, for instance, that terror attacks happen. And also the fact that the persecution of Islam critics is happening, and it's really a problem for our free democracies in the West. We live in a fragile and polarized situation, in polarized and fragile democracies in the West, and the Western world is experiencing an identity crisis. Islam, political correctness, and identity politics, for me to see, are the problem. These are the reason why we are here and why we are where we are. But everyone, no matter what our stance in the politically charged democracy crisis, we all need to come together and try and keep trying to have an honest, critical conversation, and keep on insisting that we need to have this discussion about Islam, even though the threats are real and they won't go away. The less we talk about Islam, the more the Islamists are going to win, and this can't be happening again. Now in the West as well. And we need to insist on civilized disagreement, and this is the pillar of our free democracies. Our safety and our democracies and freedom are at stake, and in my book I also warn about the rise of terrorism. I don't believe that we will experience civil war in the West, but I do believe that if the polarized situation, the polarized political situation continues to be as polarized as it is today, and if we experience censorship and self-censorship and persecution of free speech, we will have a reality in our future with more terrorism, both left-wing terrorism, right-wing terrorism, and also, of course, Islamic terrorism. We therefore, all of us have a responsibility to condemn any forms of violence, any forms of intolerance and threats. And in Norway, you have experienced right-wing terrorism, and you, of course, have to condemn such acts. But that doesn't mean that we are not going to have an honest and open discussion about, and critical discussion about Islam, because this discussion is essential for the problems that we have with Muslim immigration in the West, and they're not going to go away by themselves. They're going to grow and become even bigger problems if we ignore and keep ignoring this problem. This coming month, Danish Folk Party in Denmark has called the social minister in the parliament for a consultation, an open consultation, where they're going to ask about my case and my freedom of speech. And by that time, me and my family, we have been threatened for 6 months. For 6 months, a social authority has been threatening me and my family because I receive threats from Islamists. They are threatening an 8-year-old daughter of mine because I am an Islam critic, and I receive threats because of my usage of my freedom of speech. I really hope that the Danish parliament, once they go into this consultation, the government will decide to make it very clear that everybody in Denmark has a freedom of speech, and that also includes me. This all started back in March when I got charged by the police on a suspicion that I had done something illegal. And this was because I shared a link from Reddit, a social media which is called Reddit. I shared a link from Reddit on my Facebook. It was a link to a video of the beheading of a terrorist attack in Morocco, where a Norwegian and Danish woman, Louisa Vestager Jespersen and Maren Uland, were killed in an Islamic terrorist attack in 2008 in December. I have not yet been formally charged nor questioned by the police yet, but they have a suspicion. A week after the police told me about this suspicion, and I told the press that I was being charged. Not formally in Denmark, we have two sets of charges. We have a first one, which is they suspect you of something, and then they question you, and then they might charge you if they find they have enough evidence. So I'm at the first level of the charge. A week after that I told about this in the public, this social authority sent us a letter wanting to remove our license as a foster family. They told us that this charge meant that it wasn't compatible with the fact that I was a foster parent, and also I was now a bad digital role model, and I got threats because I was in the media, and I kept on being in the media. So this is not. This is also a critique that they had to begin with. But now they have backed down a little bit on the charges because the politicians and a lot of commentators and politicians, both on the right and left, went out when this came out in the press and said, this can't be happening, this is critical, you cannot criticize somebody's freedom of speech in this way, and you cannot use a charge like this when the child is perfectly fine, and so on. So, and we have been in dialogue with this social authority. We have answered a lot of questions, and we have been to meetings, and we have our attorney on this case, but they haven't backed down. On the contrary, they have increased their criticism of my usage of my freedom of speech. They have backed down a little bit on the charges. Now they find the charges problematic but not incompatible. They find my freedom of speech incompatible now with being a foster parent. Now about the sharing of the link to the video and why I did this, why I shared this horrendous video, or I didn't share the video, I shared a link to the video, I didn't upload anything. This was, of course, a very barbaric and cowardice act of Islamic terrorism in Morocco. This act of terrorism was not reported about in Denmark, or at least the truth about what had happened to the women was not reported about. 2 Scandinavian women were beheaded. They were camping in the mountains and were beheaded by Islamic terrorists. And this is, of course, mainly to the fact that Danish authorities, Danish police and foreign ministry and justice ministry and Danish intelligence, they chose to tell the same things. I call them lies, but you can, I will tell you what they told the public, and you can decide for yourself whether you think that is lying or not. They told the public what Moroccan authorities was telling the public, and this was that the women were found dead with signs of violence. The women were found dead, beheaded. And they also used the term, they had marks on their necks after a sharp object. So for me, that's not telling the truth to the public, and this is the problem. I actually read an article about what had happened to the women in a Danish newspaper, and it said that the women were found dead, and I didn't at all think terrorism. Then I read an article, an English language international article. I don't even remember because there were a lot of international press writing about this case, and all of these international articles were mentioning eyewitness accounts that these women were found beheaded. The day after the attack, a Moroccan English language news site wrote that they had talked to eyewitnesses and that the women were found beheaded. It wasn't, formally, nobody formally said anything, but it was allegedly. But this Danish media could also write. So, what happened is that the week after the attack, 1,450 articles were written about this terrorist attack. 50 of the articles come a little close to, come close to telling us the truth. They, for instance, say that they're cut in their necks, or one of the articles had an interview with the mother of Louisa Vesta Jespersen, and she says, "They have slaughtered my daughter, don't go to Morocco." These were articles who came close to telling us the truth. Only 5 articles out of 1,450 used the word execution about what had happened to the women. Only 3 articles mentioned that they were decapitated. Allegedly, 1 and 2 articles say that they were decapitated. And this was, even though BBC and Washington Post and a lot of other international media were writing that these women were decapitated. A French couple had found the women, so the Danish police could have found the French couple if they didn't want to just trust other media writing about eyewitness accounts. They could have found the eyewitness accounts. They could have went down to Morocco and researched. And in 1,400 articles, of course, they used the formulations that found that with marks of sharp marks on necks with after a sharp object or signs of violence. And the women were found with signs of terrorism. The authorities, I think it's a disgrace that we cannot trust our authorities, that they don't tell us the truth. For instance, they also said that there were snow in the mountains, and this was making it difficult to find out what had happened. And this is not true either, because there is footage of the area, drone footage, and there is no snow in that area. So I find this not acceptable in a free, open society. We have to be able to trust our media and our authorities when something like this happens, when a terrorist attack happens, and when a Norwegian and a Danish woman die in a terrorist attack. I believe that both the public and the victims of terrorism deserve for us to know what happened, and I think it's not worthy for the authorities to not tell us the truth, and for the media not to investigate for themselves. So when I wanted to write a blog about this, I wanted to research the case a little bit more, and then I had read that another blogger, Kim Møller from Uriasposten, who also writes about Islamic terrorism in Denmark, he had written on his blog that the video of the beheadings was not what had happened in Morocco, and I wanted to be sure. So I thought, what can I do? I don't want to see the video myself, so I thought, if I share the link, then I can ask people if they've seen it, and then we will have a discussion whether they think it's an earlier incident, a terrorist attack in Syria, for instance, or something like that. And actually, within a couple of hours after me sharing the link, people who had seen the video, and also I spoke with Kim Møller, and we found out that it probably was the beheading of the 2 women in Morocco, and that it was not an old incident. And the day after, the Danish police, decided to verify that this was the video of what had happened to the women in Morocco. So if the reason why I did it, it was only to come closer to the truth, because I didn't want to share, this news. I wanted to be more sure now that there was a video, allegedly, of the attack. I wanted to know more. I didn't do it to expose anyone. I didn't do it to because I was curious. I didn't do it I didn't do it secretive. I did it in public. I shared a public and legal and normal link. It wasn't a coded or a secret link. I didn't upload a video. I just shared a link from one media to another. And at that time, the police in Denmark had not went out and told the public that don't see this, don't watch this video, or don't share the link. They did that after I had shared the link. And also, this paragraph is used and was made to criminalize the fact if you share revenge porn or some private pictures of other people. For instance, paparazzi, if they take pictures of celebrities in their private homes, and if they share it in social media or in media, mainstream media, that won't be allowed. But so it's about sharing private pictures that don't belong in the public. And this paragraph has never been used in this way before, and is now the first time that you use it to try to criminalize the usage of pictures and footage from a terrorist attack. The first time I was on Danish TV, it was in 2009, around the protests in Iran, and at that time, Neda Sultan was... she was shot and killed in the protest, and this is very graphic pictures that went viral, and all media shared this in Denmark as well. And I was sitting multiple times on TV and discussing what was going on in Iran with the footage behind me, and of course nobody had asked her parents whether it was fine to show the pictures, because this was an ongoing protest, an ongoing, event. This was of political and public interest, and therefore nobody had, of course, asked her parents. The same way as when Ghazala Khan, Danish-Pakistani woman who got honor killed in Denmark, the Danish media used the picture of her falling to the ground, shot and killed. Sorry. Shot and killed by her brother. And this was, of course, planned with the whole family. And of course, nobody asked the family whether they could use the picture. And in both cases, nobody asked the family, and in many, many other cases, nobody asked the family of James Foley when the pictures and video of his beheading in Syria went viral, and the pictures and video footage was used by mainstream media in all Western countries, including Denmark. And the picture of the Russian ambassador who got shot and died in a museum in Turkey was, I believe, for 2 years ago, it was the photo of the year or something like that. So it's nothing new that media, also in Denmark, use footage and pictures, still and video, to show what happens in war, in terrorism, attacks, and so on. And I am all for the ethical usage of graphic pictures. I don't want to use these pictures ever in my work. I try not to use them, because if I was going to use them every time I wrote about somebody being stoned or executed. In all of the work I do, I work with very, terrorist attacks, honor killings, stoning, beheadings, executions. So I never use graphic pictures. I try not to, and this was only to find out what had happened to the women. And in my book, for instance, there are more than 50 pages of pictures of terror-related pictures, and there are almost none graphic images in the book. And I'm very sorry and I'm sad that the parents of Louisa Vester Jespersen have felt violated and offended, and that they felt that I was insensitive towards what had happened. It's not true. I was very upset and outraged, and I just wanted to find out what had happened. I wanted the public to know what had happened, and I believe that both the public and the victims of terrorism deserve to know what happens whenever somebody dies in a terrorist attacks all over the world, including, of course, a Dane. When I am a Dane myself, living in Denmark. I am being blamed for being this nasty person, as insensitive and a hateful person who exposed her, and I'm not. I'm really not. And a social authority is now threatening me. And a social authority is now threatening me and my daughter and my family because I criticize Islam. And this should, of course, not be happening in a free and open society. But I'm still standing, and whenever I go through hard times, and it's, of course, always been hard being an Islam critic, emotionally and psychologically. Whenever I'm down or I'm about to give up, I think about, then I get emotional again. I think about the men and women in Saudi Arabia, in Iran, in Afghanistan, sorry, in Somalia, in Sudan, in all of these countries, in Iraq, Syria, who are fighting against Islam's power over them. Sorry. I'm very sorry. And I have it good compared to a lot of people who don't have the freedom, or I still have more freedom than they have. And we are all lucky here in the West, whether we were born here or whether we came here and we live here as citizens. We shouldn't take our freedoms for granted. Freedom and democracy is not, it's not the way that most people in this world live. Civilized disagreements is not usual and normal when you look around the world and you see what is going on. It is very rare. What we have in the West is very rare, and it is worth fighting for and preserving, and we need not to take it for granted. And we stand on the shoulders of, sorry, I'll try to get through this, not getting emotional. But we stand on the shoulders of men and women who have fought for our freedoms and rights. For generations, people have improved what we are now happy to enjoy every day: our safety, our democracy, our rights, our freedom of speech, and civilized conversation. And freedom of speech is the pillar of our societies. We can't have freedom and democracy without freedom of speech. And this progress and this success and our culture and history in the West is worth fighting for, and it matters, and it made us, and I hope that we will cherish it, and we should cherish it, and we should cheer on people all around the world fighting to get a little bit of what we have here in the Western countries. And this is my last words. Thank you.
You can sit in the middle. Thank you. Thank you. And let's have a short conversation. At least we can try to have short conversation. I would like to give more time to the audience. And Jaleh, I understand very well that you used your time to talk about this case because she's a mother, and there is happening big unjust. But I would like to go back to the book, and I will recommend one more time. This book is a fantastic book, honest book, and I know why the special left wings are against Jaleh, because she criticizing them too.
Yeah.
Because you talk too much about dishonesty. Dishonesty from our politicians and media. Can you explain a little bit why they are like this when the topic is Islam and they are hiding the truth? So we need alternative medias, and when we have alternative medias, they say they are like extremists. So they just want they don't want to let us know the truth, whatever it is.
It's very, very. For instance, it's very clear when it comes to terrorism and when it comes to, for instance, social control. These are two topics that are very big in, I guess, also in Norway and other countries. But in Denmark, it's very. These are the topics we mostly discuss. It's the, honor concept in the families towards especially the girls, and then it's terrorism, also the radicalization. What I don't use the word radicalization because I use the word jihadism, and this is of course because mainstream Islam has jihad as a concept fully integrated within mainstream Islam. And you have different Islamists who have different approaches to how to further Islam, and you have overall two groups: the Salafis, who are the jihadists mostly.
They are honest.
They're honest, and
Honest
they
Muslims.
say we have jihad and we want to do jihad against you. We want to kill you, and they're honest. Al Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, al-Baghdadi, they're very honest. And at the other front, you have mostly the Brotherhood as the biggest, maybe, and Iran and Saudi Arabia. They don't have their goal is the same: Sharia law and a caliphate, an Islamic state that is growing, and they want power. But the Muslim Brotherhood and Iran and Saudi Arabia and so on, they have a different strategy. They don't want to use jihad to further Islam. They want to use political organization and mobilizing people, and and they're more dishonest. They don't tell us the truth. They are double-tongued. You probably have this in Norway as well, and So actually, they are more tricky, and they're also more dangerous because a lot of Westerners are naive and believe what they say. And when I asked them, but you know that she just said the other thing as well. So why do you think that is? Why do you think she says, okay, I do believe in executions, but at the same time, I really don't want to talk about it. I'm for democracy. So why do you think that is? It's of course because they're double-tongued, and this has been proved again and again. You saw the Moskéerne bag sløret, a documentary that was made in Denmark a couple of years ago, and this is not the first time it has been revealed that these Islamists lie to us. They say one thing when they meet with our politicians, and they, behind closed doors, say something else.
This dishonesty that we are experiencing more and more from both the Muslim organizations and the politicians and the media. Do you see how this is, why this is happening? Do you have an opinion about that?
Yes, and I don't think, and I have been talking to a lot of politicians in Denmark, also at minister level, when we had a right wing government, and it's because Danish politicians, even though they can see the problems, they don't fully understand what is going on. So, and for instance, this Muslim Brotherhood, this double tongue, they are very much active and trying to convince the politicians all the time that if we go out and criticize, if you go out and criticize Islam, the Salafis will win, you know, the jihadists will win. So don't criticize Islam openly. You can say you're for democracy and we're for democracy, we'll help you. And this creates an atmosphere where politicians, Westerners who are not Muslims, who are used to talking openly about anything, they self-censor. They start self-censoring on a political level, but also on, on a ministry level. For instance, when they have these reports, writing reports about social control or terrorism, they start to self-censor, and they, for instance, in page 153, right, and all of the women we have talked to say that it is religion that is being used against us, but nothing about Islam is really mentioned in the conclusion. And this is, of course, and even the wordings, the social control, it's mostly about, and the problem is Muslim honor culture and Muslim suppression of women. That's what we are talking about. This is reality. But now, for instance, they have tried to say, oh, we also have some Christian groups that have these problems. And of course, you have other groups in our society, in Western societies, that are saying to their women, oh, don't go with miniskirt and so on. But it's nothing compared to what is going on in Muslim families, and all of this is very taboo, and it's not discussed, and it's because of the influence that these double-tongued Islamists have, because they come in and say, we are Muslims, we don't want jihad, we are good, we are the ones you should trust. Let us tell you what to say. Let us tell you how to write your report, and this is why.
But, almost like you writing in your book, not exactly like this, but like I'm talking.
Yeah.
You say, if we give more freedom to these Muslims, dishonest Muslims, and then we will see how honest they can be. Because we have some restrictions in the West, so they don't say the truth to you. But when we watch, for example, the videos from imams, from Jordan, Saudi Arabia, or Qatar, they are not afraid. They say right out what is Islam. So a lot of things is bothering me in the West. Because of, I'm all time thinking, why the left? Why the especially left have to do that to us? Because of, you were you was a socialist. You're writing in your book too, that your background, your father's background, and you were active in the Enhedslisten. It's like a red, the red in Norway. But you left them, and you give many examples there showing their hypocrisy. Can you?
I grew up with my father being a communist. He has also left his party now and is more moderate now. But I grew up with a lot of talk about Marxism and so on, And what I felt attracted to as a young socialist was freedom for homosexuals, sexual freedom, the fighting for women's rights, and so on. And of course, I was from Iran. I saw what had happened in Iran, so I was very critical of religion. And the more I got to know about, because I came from Iran, and I thought that everybody living in the West with a Muslim background, no matter if they were Muslims or not, they were, of course, against Iran and Sharia law and the, what the kind of Islam that was back in Iran was representing. But then I found out that no, you have children here being brought up who say, I'm not allowed to look in the eyes of boys in school. These were my friends. I was like, what is going on? Or I am not allowed to have, cooperation in school when we're working on a project. I'm not allowed really to work with a boy in my class. And they were talking about forced marriages, and I didn't understand it. It took me many years to understand what was going on, because I was telling myself, no, this is just one case. This can't be the reality. But reality was that every person with Muslim background in the West was not critical of Islam and critical of the kind of Islam that I had experienced. And I found out, the Islam that is back in Iran is kind of the same Islam that they're talking about. And even though they're Turkish or Palestinian or Somali or, and then I started reading a lot about what does the Muslim Brotherhood say, what does Al-Qaeda say, what does Erdogan say, what does, all of these different Islamists, what do they say? Do they say the same things? And yes, and it all comes back to the literalist approach to the holy book of Muslims, the Quran and the Hadith and Sirah, the biography of and the teachings about the Prophet of Islam. So all of these, even though they hate each other sometimes and they want to kill each other, for instance, the Sunni Shia war going on now in Syria and in Iraq and in Yemen, they are Muslims killing each other because of a small disagreement about who got the power after the death of the Prophet. This is mainly the biggest, Sunni Shia difference. Theologically, they're almost the same, and they are killing each other because of this difference. And then it's hard for Westerners to understand that even though they have differences inside of that whole umbrella called Islam, the theology and their, the problems with human rights, with democracy, with women's rights, homosexuals, hating Jews, wanting to kill Jews, and so on. This is mainstream theology. And if you don't criticize this, of course, you can have a situation where we are, and of course you can have a situation where the Islamists, enjoy this peaceful freedom to recruit more people and radicalize or jihad, to fill people's head with jihadi talk, and we will have more terrorism. I mean, if we want to fight and have a more modern approach to Islam, we have to criticize Islam. And I think that we will have, I think that at one point we will have more criticism, and I think you guys and what I'm doing and what you're doing is paving the way for, inshallah, for more criticism to be allowed. Also, for instance, I think that Muslim countries, they won't allow this discussion, but then now they have the internet and they can, watch what we are talking about.
Islam is collapsing.
I hope so.
Yes, but it takes time because of majority of the West politicians and media not supporting the critics.
Yes.
They are busy with the hijabists. They are busy with the imam.
Yeah.
This is the problem.
And this is also the case because I also work sometimes with the Rahil Reza, and Shirin Ghodowsi, and
I'm critical to them.
Yeah, I know. And I don't understand where they are coming from, because these are the reformists that I was talking about earlier. I don't see where they're coming from, because I can't see how you can take the Quran and then be a Muslim, and because I'm an atheist and I don't have any way of imagining a reform of Islam, but I won't say that it will never happen. I hope it happens. I hope that Rahil and Shireen and what is the guy's name?
Zudi
Zudi Jasser. Yeah, Zudi Jasser. That they have all. I wish them luck. I want them to get this religion reformed really, but they meet the same from liberals and left wing. They're called racist. A person who's saying I want to reform my religion in the West because my religion has problems, they're told you're racist, you are bigoted against Muslims, and so on.
Like Majid Nawaz, you mentioned it in your book.
Majid Nawaz. They're called kuffar by Western politicians. They're called you're pretending to be Muslim by Western politicians. They say you're really a racist.
Left-wing politicians.
Yeah, mostly left-wing politicians. But even like on the right, a lot of politicians, at least in Denmark, and also in the United States, you have people also in the Conservative Party, in the Republican Party, who don't understand what is going on, and who are, and this is also something that is, you have to be respectful of other people's religion and don't criticize. And criticism of religion has nothing to do with racism. It has absolutely, you can be as critical as you want of religions, and it has nothing to do with being a racist. Yeah.
I don't really agree with that anymore, because the way that I see our media is behaving right now, the socialists, they are merging together with Islamism. They are merging together with Islam. Because what you are going through in Denmark, and what we have seen has been going on in different countries in Europe right now, and especially in England lately, is a persecution of real journalism. If you are telling the truth, you are opposing the media that is trying to define a new religion. And if you are a sinner in their eyes, they are going to make sure that you don't get to talk. You don't get to dirty the name of the religion they are creating. And religion doesn't start with you follow one person, like they say in the stories. It starts with you just get too afraid to tell the truth. You just start obeying. And you start obeying because they don't leave you any choice. So yeah, we have to keep staying strong and fight it all we can, because the way I grew up watching Muslims, either if they were jihadis or they were the mainstream, they were talking always about the Muslims taking over the world, just like it says in the Quran, as if you were talking about your football team going to win the next match. And they don't know if they're going to win. Maybe they will lose, but they are very energized about it, and they are hoping they will. And when they don't get a team fighting against them whatsoever, they were playing alone, they're going to win. So exactly. we have to team up and actually give them a fight there. But the media is liking Islamic censorship because it is benefiting them. It's benefiting them without being opposed by people like us. So
So you guys, for instance, you don't get invited into the TV and...
Yeah, but I don't care. I don't care. I don't
we
get
are not.
invited.
You
They
are
don't.
right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I always find my friends. You know. So I don't care if I am not invited to those parties.
But I mean,
where
this is a problem,
yes,
of course,
because we
for
still
a free
need.
democracy.
Right now, we need to stimulate our minds by conversation, and we are being blocked out of social media. We are kicked out of Facebook. We are kicked out of YouTube. We are removed from accessing our own friends.
Yes.
And you are even being threatened in your own home. They want to take your child away. I mean, how long will you fight? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, they put Tommy Robinson in jail. So it's really
very scary. It's very
yeah. It's
scary.
like you are in a Muslim country because they are putting journalists in jail all the time in Muslim countries. Right in Turkey right now, no one thought that was going to happen, and our socialists, they have just embraced this. They are loving it, and I don't think we can have a
And it's not
conversation
even-
with them.
Yeah, and I don't think even it's only the socialists, because as I told you, the right-wing parties also, they are being influenced by, because...
They don't want to be put in the sinner box either.
Yeah, I also write about this in the book. Politicians or media, they don't find us authentic. They don't. We are not real Muslims. We are ex-Muslims. That's weird. Even Muslims who want to, confront Islamists and so on, they're not authentic enough. You have to have a beard or hijab. Then you are, this is very exciting. This is exotic. This is something we can work with. When I was a socialist and a member of Islamism, and a woman with a hijab, Asma Abdul Hamid, she entered the party, and the politicians from my party, from the left-wing socialist party, they would say, she's a real Muslim. And this is the reason why Danish people don't like her, because she's a real Muslim. So actually, a left-wing socialist man was defining who is a real Muslim. And a real Muslim is as far away as somebody who looks like myself. So I'm embracing something that is far away from myself, but you don't even know what it is. And I was in the party and I saw everything. After a few months, people started to say, "Who knows her? Who knows? Did you talk to her before she got she became a candidate for our party?" Nobody knew what she was. Her opinions were. She was Asma Abdul Hamid with the hijab. She was just there because she had a hijab and because the right wing hated her. So therefore, she was our candidate, and she got to the top. And we actually, when we found out that she was, saying really weird stuff about execution and
this was the woman who say that I look in the world with my Islamic glasses.
Yeah. And all of this was, of course, more and more problematic. And I was in the board, hovedbestyrelsen, on the board of that party at that time. And we decided after some months to say, okay, we cannot continue having her as our candidate because we cannot defend her in the media anymore. And we were about to actually have an extraordinary Congress to get rid of her as a candidate. But then we had the election, and because of that debate closed, because then she didn't get elected, and the party just wanted peace because the party was afraid of, getting split into pieces because people would be disagreeing upon this subject. And I was more and more critical of what was going on in my own party, and
Jaleh,
I left.
I have to say one thing for clarifying. I'm not against left or right, or even I hate actually left and right discussion in an Islamic topic or reform Islam or whatever you call it. But I feel something's forcing me to mention the leftist or the regressive left, Islamo-left, because something's problem with them. I don't understand.
Yeah.
We are seeing many little girls going with the hijab. From even 6 years to the 9 to the 17. And no one cares in the West. And these girls have no same rights such as the Western little girls have. Not the teacher, not the politicians, like this is normal.
Yeah.
This is not normal.
And
This is social control.
Yeah.
It starts there.
Yeah.
And who are behind this? Often the leftists.
Yeah. And
So I just want to clarify, this not about left, but I can't stand. You know, when I read your book, I get more angry to the left. Why? Because you are talking about, you were in the rut, and in 2010 you were threatened and kicked out of an Islamic meeting in Nuremberg.
yeah.
The police had to escort you because of the threats and excited mood. Your party, Enheitslisten, was worried, and the board felt that you should apologize to Muslims and Nuremberg.
Yeah.
They were neither
because I
concerned
had
about
went
your
to the
own-
media.
They- yeah.
Because I had went to the media and told what had happened to me, I should apologize because I made Nuremberg look bad.
Nuremberg is bad. Like, you know, I saw earlier today one link, one news, one of my friends showed me. It's writing like this. All writing saying one Swedish get arrested because of terror planning in Nuremberg. And later you read the Swedish who have the Swedish passport.
Yeah.
It's not Swedish, but Swedish passport. And later you read down another Swedish they are looking for. So I get confused. Is it Swedish or not Swedish? Or, why don't you say the truth? Give us some information. Our media, like alternative media, like Document, like Reset, like Hores in Norway, they are doing very good job and showing us the truth about behind the crimes, for example. And this have to be one normal thing that people need to know from all over every media, but they don't show. And this is dangerous, and they don't understand that. And who is behind that? Often leftists. And this make me upset, and I can't stand. I have to say something against left.
And this is very dangerous because, for instance, when the Danish public didn't hear the truth about what happened to Louisa Vestager and Maren Ulan, when then on the right wing, conspiracy theories started. So they would connect all sorts of things with what happened in Morocco and use the girls' pictures on other crimes and so on. Because if you don't trust your government, you will start to say, "Oh, everything you say is a lie." And then, this is what happens in totalitarian countries. You have conspiracy theories. You don't know what is the truth, and before we had different media. We had left-wing media or right-wing media, central media, and they would all agree upon what happened yesterday. Then we can have different analysis to what should happen or what should be the solution to the problems. But now we don't agree on what happened yesterday. We have totally different media, and this is a very dangerous and polarized situation where people, we need to know what is happening. And for instance, in Denmark, there was a terror attack. I call it a terror attack, but the Danish police didn't call it a terror attack. Some years ago, a Muslim who had been in jail and who was radicalized or jihadized, whatever you will call it, and he came out and he took an axe. When he came out of prison, he took an axe and he started cutting two youngsters at a tank station, petrol station. And the terrorists, the terrorist police against terrorism were set in, and they were all over that town. But nobody told the public about the fact that this is probably terrorism, that this man did this because of his beliefs in a religion. And evidence that we got that it was terrorism, it's because the man's father gave an interview and said that his son had come out of prison and had been radicalized in prison. So this is just one incident. Nobody died in that attack, but still 2 youngsters were hacked by an axe, and the Danish police and the Danish authorities didn't really tell people what had happened. And when I tell this to Dane, they don't know that this happened because nobody really talked about what had happened. Because there's a difference of somebody crazy doing something and you don't really know what happened, and then it being a terrorism attack.
If it's a terrorism attack, it was lonesome wolves.
Yeah.
Lonely wolves.
Yeah.
If it is something done by someone who is ethnically European, then it's a group thing. Yeah. That's how they approach it.
And you told us about the terrorist attack, the right-wing terrorist attack, then in Norway. Yeah, in Norway.
Yes. You know, I believe first of all that Europe had a lot of Islamic terror attack. We know only maybe 50%. A lot of like lonely wolves, so-called. Yeah. You know, the alternative media is writing, and even the one register in internet writing. You know, when they say Allahu Akbar, like the last time it happened in Australia, in Sydney, one guy, converted guy, killed one woman, and it is on the record. He is saying Allahu Akbar, nothing else. Like, you know, this time when the Morocco incident, our state minister, I think she came the day after or 2 days later, I don't remember, and she just said it's a like horrific, unlucky crime happened and took 2 lives away. Yeah. You know, the same day, the link is being posted in our comments on Facebook, and I saw it, not the whole video. It is clearly, they are Arabic, they're saying Allahu Akbar, I hear, I don't understand Arabic. My friends sent me a message and they said, this is Islamic terror, this is ISIS. He's saying that this is the head of the non-believer. This is the head of the enemy of Allah.
And they
so
also
how the security service, how the state minister don't know this, and why they keep hiding the truth? Why?
They know this, and in several articles, actually, journalists wrote that Moroccan authorities have not formally said that a Dane has been killed, but the Danish authorities have notified the relatives. So how is that possible? The Moroccan authorities don't know whether a Dane officially is dead, but the Danish authorities have notified the victims' relatives. I mean, how can that be happening in Denmark?
Back to your question about in Norway. You know, when this happened, like one guy tried to kill someone in the mosque. Unfortunately, I'm happy that nothing happened there, but he killed his sister. But in the same night, I think it was some hour after this incident, state minister, the left politicians, right politicians, even they go to the mosque, you know, and his name came up, all thing. And this is a good thing. It should be like this.
His information was out there for the public to see who was he and right.
It was not.
I don't know.
Yes,
is that the case?
And
yeah.
it was not clear everything.
Yeah.
But in other case in Morocco, everything was clear. There were a video.
Yeah.
There were an explanation.
And the women were found beheaded. How can you lie about what had happened to them? The women's head was not, you know, it was separated from their bodies. You know that these women were beheaded. How can you say marks or damages? This is just, for me to, I mean, I think lies, but I mean, of course, this is also something that I could be prosecuted for.
It's seriously disrespectful.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's disrespectful to the people and to the profession, but it doesn't seem to bother them anymore.
We can give the mic to the audience. I think after that, if you have more questions or...
yes.
Where is...
He was first, and then him, and then.
Marit, can you give microphone to them? Yes, Erike, Salim here. Salim here? No, no. Okay, I can give. It's okay. Where is the other guys?
Hello, my name is Øystein Halle. I have a comment about something which you brought up, Jamal, the role of the left here. Of course, if you say, why is the left so reluctant to address the problems you have inherent in Islam? Of course they are intimidated like everyone else. And of course they may be manipulated by people who say you shouldn't criticize Muslims because then they will be radicalized and we get a polarized debate and all that. But of course the main reason is that the left is caught up in a worldview which I would call the white man's burden of guilt. They have this notion that the Western countries are the root cause of everything that's bad in the world. You have Western imperialism, Western colonialism, racialism, which of course is only something that may come from white people. So you have this black and white worldview where black is right and white is wrong. And of course in that context, when you see the world through that type of ideological lens, Islam can never be a problem. Quite on the contrary, Muslims are oppressed. They're oppressed whether they are at Nuremberg, or whether they are in Syria killing people there, or whether they are in Morocco killing people there. And of course you see also that the left is willing to side with everyone who has an issue with the West. They came out in support of Gaddafi, who is not a Muslim. They came out in support of Slobo Milosevic in Serbia, who was actually slaughtering Muslims. And then, of course, they have made up all sorts of excuses for Al-Qaeda and all sorts of Muslim organizations of every description. So I think you have that problem there. And as I think you all realize, and as you more or less stated in your discussion, this type of notion of blaming the West for everything that's gone wrong, this has spread across the political spectrum, and it's permeated the entire debate. So you get politicians from all political camps. I just wanted to make a statement about this. I think that's the answer if you ask what is the role of the left here. I think the left is a bigger problem than most people have been willing to acknowledge here.
I'd love to make a small comment for that. Prophet Muhammad was white. He had black slaves. He hated them. He described the devil as a black man with curly hair and thin legs. He also said that a black man will one day destroy the Kaaba. He also said that he had a dream about a black woman, and he told his followers that it was a warning of a disease, an epidemic. And if the left is in this situation, it's because they want to be. They have chosen it. They don't let the truth about Islam out there.
Hi, welcome to Norway firstly, and thanks for your event to ex-Muslims of Norway. And I actually have very quick two questions. First one is to you, Tavakoli. The first one is, let's roll back the time to that moment that you posted this video. With all that knowledge, would you post it again? Like, do you think that it's like what you did is correct in terms of freedom of speech? And to all of you, regarding that, we talked a lot about leftist wing today, and I also asked this question to myself, why it's like this, and I totally understand your concerns about the honesty of the media and giving the truth as it is. I think the left wing is doing that because Muslim vote stocks are quite high, and they are getting higher, and they don't want to lose this. And so could it be like, do you see them as like they are betraying to their homeland? Like the left wing? That's two questions. Thanks.
If I would do it again, of course I would not do it again if I knew what would happen to me. My family is the most important thing for me. I would never do that again. And as I said, I don't want to share pictures or footage like that at all. It's not something that I do. I try not to do it, but I can only explain why I did it. And I didn't do it to be insensitive or to expose someone. And a lot of media say that she did it to show how extreme or bad Islamic terrorism is. That's not true, because I didn't do it for the people to see what had happened. I did it because I wanted to find out, is this what happened to the women? Because we are reading in 1400, that means 1,450 articles were written with what I don't see anything close to the truth of what happened to the women. And I wanted to find out the truth, and this was why I shared the video, because I was researching for a blog about what had happened, to write, to put out there what mainstream media didn't put out there. That's the truth. And if the police had verified the video, I would never even see the video. If the police had told us what had happened, I would never see the video or share it. And of course, I wouldn't have shared it if I knew what would happen afterwards.
I can start with the second question. I believe that they betraying West. Generally, the left doing that, and they're doing this clearly. Because of, we could avoid all these problems with the Islam and the integration, everything, if they did something right long before, like 40 years ago. They put Islam in the same line with the Christianity. Without knowledge, without critical thinking, they take it in without thinking what it is bring with it to our country. They had maybe fascinating of the Middle East, I don't know what, but they are acting like the fifth column today. And they are not accepting that they did something wrong. Because in Islam, we haven't any criticism. It was not allowed in 1400 years. Even a lot of Muslims doesn't understand that, because like Jaleh making some categories about the Muslims, types, 6 types of Muslims in her book. It's very good, right? I agree with you. That the first one is not Muslims; they are ex-Muslims. So,
Yeah.
but she making types, and even she's agree. The majority of Muslims are not jihadists. They are category 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And this category 3, type 3 and 4, is hijacking it by it's continuing to hijack it by the category 5th and 6th. So I advise you to read the book, please. So I mean, the short way to explain this, that either they didn't have knowledge about Islam, or they are very naive, or it is their agenda. They want some offer victims to support. And this, I don't know. But they acting like fifth column, and they making West is there for me. It was there. And the Muslim country is there because of the values. But today, they are accepting this one to be and mixing there without do anything, and they come there. Then there is no country to look up for me. They had to have restriction, and they have to criticize and support every ex-Muslim and blasphemers, and help to the normal Muslim to wake up. Because it's a lie, and one lie can only fighten it by truth.
And also,
we have to tell truth, and they have to tell this, and they have to allow that we can talk about it, we can do some things, because people can change their mentality, but Islam cannot change.
And also there is this notion that many people believe, and also a lot of Muslims believe this, that with time we will see progress. And this has been true in the West. But if you look at Islam's history, with time progress does not come. You can have progress in Islamic countries when Islam doesn't have that much power. Then Islam comes to power, then you go back in time with your progress. And this happened, of course, to my country in Iran, and this has happened so many times in Islamic history. And this is, of course, because normally when Vietnamese or somebody from Africa or somebody, most cultures are not just integrated by the same second they come to the West, but in one generation and 2 generations they will integrate because it's just easier to integrate than not to integrate. But in Islam or with Muslims, you have a culture and you have a religion that is resisting Western culture. You are told not to be as Norwegians. You're told to be not as Danes. You're told not to dress as them.
It's haram.
It's
they
haram.
kill their children if they
Yeah.
try to integrate.
But even if they're not, even if they're not like totally religious and have just theological explanations, they just know from knowing a little bit about their religion that they have to reject this culture.
If they don't, they are rejected by the community
Yes,
of Muslims.
exactly. Yeah. So you have a culture resisting integration, and of course this is why integration doesn't happen. And a lot of statistics in Denmark now show that third and fourth generation are worse off when it comes to honor concepts, when it comes to social control, and also when it comes to being radicalized or being a jihadi. You have more radical views among the youngsters in their parents' generation, and this is because the Islamists have nobody opposing them, and they are of course recruiting what they can.
Also, just thought of this, that every time we bring up what's going on in the Muslim world, what has happened all through the Islamic history, which we are not allowed to talk about. We are only allowed to talk about the bad things that has happened when the white man picked up the sword. Never supposed to talk about what happened to the world when Islam was a threat. Then we are told that we are not in a Muslim country. We are in Norway. Talk about Norway. We cannot discuss other countries' politics. While they are also constantly talking about a globalization, where we all have to come together. So they pick and choose however it pleases for them to stay in power. The ones that are in power, they keep corrupting their own followers so they can stay in power. And if you speak up about the truth that you discover somehow, then you are punished for it. Just like Muslims are not allowed to integrate into the society that they are surrounded by. In the same way, the left isn't letting people integrate into more knowledge like it used to be, like it was in the 90s. It's not allowed anymore. You are prosecuted. They don't call you a kafir or a infidel, they call you a racist.
Yeah.
A lot of Muslims even have much problems in the Muslim community in the West, like ghettos, like Nörebro, Malmö. Muslims self have problems and they want to run away.
Yeah.
And this even, like the mainstream media,
The racist Muslims.
not accepting, not accepting. The Muslims are victims. The most of the Muslims are victims. We have to help them. We are not hating them, but if somebody hates their ideology or Islam as a religion, not Islamism, Islam, they have right to hate if they want. I don't hate. I don't need to hate, But I think it's just a lie, and we have to fight against it because it's like a parasite, Islam, not Muslims. My mother have this parasite. Somebody have a lot of this parasite. Another have less different. So we have different Muslims. We have to wake them. It is time to tell them the truth. We need theological debate. We need social debate. But we have to point the elephant in the room. This we have to do.
And there's also the racism of low expectations, because Westerners feel that, oh, we cannot criticize Islam because it's, they cannot handle the criticism, so we should not do it. That's actually being a racist towards a minority in your country. You think that they cannot handle it, therefore you treat them as if they're less a human than you are. Of course, if you would criticize Jehovah's Witnesses, you should of course criticize Islam. So why don't you do it? It's because you're actually a racist, because you see the Muslim as another person that you cannot really, you're not the same, so therefore
and their
you
feelings.
yeah.
all the time.
So because you're not the same as the Muslim, you feel that you're a bigger human being than a Muslim, because the Muslim cannot really handle the criticism. So that's actually being a racist, thinking like that.
And I remember I read in the papers, it was about it was documented that most of the people who have come to the country has taken over the jobs. So Norwegians don't have a lot of job opportunities, and a politician said that we should raise the school grade knowledge of Norwegians so they can get, better paid jobs. And I thought, and that's not racist? Seriously, it's like, just they can be racist. They can say that we need foreigners because they need to come and bring us coffee. We need foreigners to do this job and that job that we don't want to do, clean our houses, wash our cars and such. And that's not racist. But if we say that we want to criticize a religion that we are from, then we are racist.
But
But I was thinking that too. It just rubbed me the wrong way back in my back of my neck, because I have been conditioning myself to never talk about Muslims. I don't do that. I consequently talk about Islam, and I can talk about the leftists. I mean,
But of course,
I've been really so good at it that I don't even notice until you said Muslims, and I was like, no, can't talk about Muslims at all, only Islam.
But I will give you I think your main goal with this book, like you say, honest debate.
Yeah.
Like if we will talk about Muslims, then we have to talk about Muslims. And if we will talk about Islam, we have to talk about Islam.
Yeah.
So we have to have the right definition.
Yes.
Is it
and
right?
we have
Am
to
I
also
right?
understand that Islam is not Muslims, as you also told. Islam is sometimes Muslim, some Muslims, and there are different degrees to when you can say Islam and Muslims. So, but a lot of, for instance, people go wrong thinking that also people who are not trying to find mistakes in my book. A friend of mine, for instance, she's a journalist. She read my book the other day, and she was asking me questions about it. And she thought that I meant that all Muslims are waiting to become jihadists. And I said, no, you misunderstood me. I'm not saying that all Muslims are waiting to become jihadists. I'm saying that mainstream Islam has jihad fully integrated as a concept within mainstream Islam. That doesn't mean that all Muslims want to be jihadists at all. But of course, that means when you have this theology and you don't criticize it,
Anyone can be.
anyone, if they don't want to, and that is why a lot of Muslims, they don't want to have to do with the theology. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want to talk about it, because if they talk about it, then they have to either accept jihad or reject jihad, and they don't want to. So they just close their eyes, they close their mouth, and they'll just try to go, not to go to the mosque that much, or try to avoid it.
And more questions we have to get.
I have Muslim friends who I love so much that I don't discuss religion or politics or anything with them. Because if I do, I think we will not be friends anymore. And they're good people. They are not very religious, but they are, you know, they are Muslim by birth. So I don't talk to them about this.
I will say something to the audience about what you say, but it's better I don't say, because better I don't say. 6%. Okay. Yeah. We have to quick. No.
I got carried away.
Quickly, please. Question. So, yeah, he will.
Mr. Peterson, I'm a member of ex-Muslim in solidarity with your group. I have one comment and one question. My comment is that during the Second World War, it is well known that many communists and other leftists joined the Nazis. And this has been explained by they having a personality trait. They are attracted to totalitarian ideologies, and they like a dream about a perfect society in the future. And I think that, to a certain extent, also is true today with the leftists. You are communist, you have a totalitarian mentality, you have a dream of a perfect society. It's different from the Islam society, but there's something in common. I think that is some explanation. And the media in Norway, at least, is 70-80% leftist. That explains
I
also.
agree with you. I think I told exactly the same thing to some.
We were talking about that earlier.
To you, yeah.
And then my question. As you know, many Muslim scholars have said that the doors to interpretation of Quran are closed. The doors have been closed for a long time. There will be no repatriation. There will be no reformation. Never. Provided that this is true, what will then happen down the road? Let's say 50 years from now, or whatever. You said you didn't believe in civil war, but let's say there is no reformation. What will eventually happen someday? What do you think about that?
Do you want to?
I think then, I mean, from also experience and seeing people being critical, Muslim people being critical towards the religion, most Muslims who are critical towards the religion leave the religion. Either silently, they don't talk about it, but they leave the religion, or they're like you guys and me, and we talk about it, of course. So a lot of people just become atheists. Some convert to other to Christianity, for instance. And of course, some are Reform Muslims. They are out there saying they're spiritual, they're meditating, and that is Islam for them. And they have different ways of explaining what this Reform Islam is. But of course, they are fringe. They are not at all organized. They are not mobilizing. They are really, really small groups. Ayaan Hirsi Ali's assistant came to Denmark, and I talked with her about Ayaan Hirsi Ali's research for her new book, and then she had visited a reformist Turkish woman from Germany. She has a mosque there, and she said that she went there to talk with her, and she had more protection than Ayaan Hirsi Ali. This old woman who doesn't really have a big following, just because she's trying to reform her own religion, she has more protection than Ayaan Hirsi Ali. That is so scary to me and so depressing, really, for the future of Islam. And I don't care, reform it or leave it. But I actually bought, before all of this happened, I bought a website called Reform or Leave. So this is of course my solution to Muslims. You have to reform your religion or leave it if you want to have a religion that is, you know, compatible with freedoms, democracy, and yeah, modernity.
It's terrorism in Saudi Arabia to be an atheist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you want to say something?
It's there was Muhammad caricatures, and then came ISIS, And as long as nothing changes with the Quran and the Hadith, there will be more terror groups, there will be more trouble. And if we don't fight back, then we are going to lose. So we should seriously start opening up and look at the Quran. Saw this interview with Yasmin Mohammed, who is an ex-Muslim from Canada. And she said that Muslims need to read the Quran and the Hadith because most Muslims don't do that. And once you have done that, you will either be an ex-Muslim or you will be a jihadi.
Right. Interpretation of Quran, it's not closet. They do still, and they did in the last 400 years. I never read them because they are lying. This new interpretation, it cannot help. It cannot help. This, like you say, I don't want to make some conspiracy theory of the future, but everything can happen. It can be like a war between like Serbia, Bosnia in the future. Who knows? It can be anything, but I believe in humanity and the common sense. I know Muslims can change their mentality. If they realize what is in their book, who was Muhammad, if they learn the truth, I'm sure that we will not have any problems. You can believe a stone if you want, but as long as this stone is not forced to anyone, just your private belief, no problem. So I believe ex-Muslims are the future, but the question is how much time we will waste and how much it will cost. Today we have to do something, and this is like you did to the Christianity. The Thomas Jefferson's book, Common Sense, it is, I think, I get shocked after I read it, when I saw when he wrote that, he wrote it 300 years ago, or 200, I don't know, 1794, I think. It is crazy how this guy talks in this time against Christianity, against religions, and he was free.
Just a small contribution. He said after he did Quran, he realized that the only thing the Muslims understand is power. And then they got the Algeria for the permanent slave trades.
Yeah, I know this one. Christopher Hitchens have a very good explanation about that. I know this. This another time. Yes. There. Okay.
Hello, my name is. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Pernille Dahl Johnson, and I'm a playwright, and I'm writing a play about free speech. That's why I'm here. Free speech issues in our time in the West. And so thank you very much for sharing your very important and interesting story, and thank you to ex-Muslims for creating this meeting. I have a comment and a question. A comment first. I've been on the left all my life, and I have always been very interested in religion. When I was 14, I didn't go to the Christian confirmation that all Norwegians do. I went to borgerlig konfirmasjon, which is a civil ceremony, and learned about all world religions, there amongst them Islam. We didn't learn anything critical or negative. I thought it was exotic. Oh, those are the people with the baggy pants, and so on. And I kept on reading books about Islam too. It never occurred to me to read the Quran. That says a lot. But I read other books, and none of them are critical. For example, a couple of years ago in Skavlan, the famous Norwegian talk show, he had invited a religious scholar called Karen Armstrong from the UK, who has written like a big Bible of a book called History of God, which compares Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. And I read all that when it came out in the 90s, and I cannot remember it containing anything negative or anything about the dangers of anything. So with my leftist background, I would have honestly thought, before I read the Quran, because now I have, but before that, I would have honestly thought that anyone critical of this exotic, exciting religion that shares Abraham with us and all that, I would have thought it is racism. I think that many on the left honestly believe that, unfortunately. And I don't know, as the same as Jeanette said, I don't know whether to encourage people to read the Quran, because I think the same as you. If you have some kind of belief as a Muslim, you will either be terrified of all the hell descriptions there, and you will become more literal, or you will have to reject it and lose perhaps your family or horrible things. So it is not easy. The solution would be to have people read the Quran, but you can't advise them to read it, so it's very difficult. That was my comment. My question was to you, when you posted that the link on Facebook, did you make clear why that you wanted people to see it so that they could tell you if it was the real thing or not? Was that in writing clear so that you can prove your intent? Thank you very much again.
Yes. Yes, I shared an article, an English language article, and wrote, why is the Danish media not covering this case? So from there, a lot of journalists commented on my Facebook, and some political commentators commented, oh, there are articles about this case. And this was, of course, not enough, because I read an article. I didn't understand it was the same case that I read about when I read about the beheadings. And then one said that I was a conspiracy theorist because I was telling that they were decapitated, both of them. And then I shared other links, for instance, explaining that Kim Møller from Uriasposten, he was saying that it's not that video, and I wrote, I think this is the video, I don't know, but warning, it's very strong pictures. And then I also publicly had others, I don't remember what came first, but I also had it was within 1 day or 2 days maximum. Then I had other statements like, is it the video, is it not, and so on. So I have screenshots of that to explain that I was following the case, and I was trying to get the Danish media involved, telling the truth about the case, and I was asking Kim Møller whether it was this video or what was his evidence of it not being, because that threw me off. I was going to write that it is allegedly probably this video of the attempt, but because he wrote that and he follows Islamic terrorism, then I was thrown off, and that was why I shared the link to find out whether it was or was not, or what, because if you share it, people will say, oh, this happened in Syria, this is not Morocco, this is not this case, So that was why I shared it, and I have screenshots of the whole thing developing from the start.
Please quickly, the one here. No, we can start with that. Okay, see after this, I think.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief, but I have a comment. First of all, I want to say thank you to Jaleh and to you to organize this wonderful debate. I've been to your organization many times. My name is Parviz. I was an Iranian diplomat in Sweden and Norway, and after Khomeini's hijacked the revolution, I just joined the resistance underground as a mulvarp, you call it in Norwegian, and I work for the resistance, and I still do. In the same time, I am also the member of the Labour Party. I want to stay in the left in order to just shut their mouth, those old communists in these Labour parties who are hating Israel, hating America, and then appeasing these. I wanted to just tell you about the jihadizing. You have chosen a very nice name. It's not the first time in the history that they jihadize a religion or an ideology, Christianity, and thanks to Martin Luther and Calvin, they have reformed Islam, Christianity, because they have translated in Germany the Bible, and that was a blasphemy. But now there are 1.5 billion Muslims. How many of them they can Arabic? They don't even read in their language. It's not valid. And then we came to the jihadizing Germanism, you say, jihadizing Marxism, make it a horrible ideology like Stalin, Pol Pot, and those people who, like Baader-Meinhof, Red Army, they killed people in Europe those days, like the jihadists. And then now we actually, unfortunately, we have this Islam. So as a union between these ideologies, they have been many times in history uniting each other. Remember in the Second World War, there was a Mufti Hussein in Palestine. Because of the hate against Israel, he went to Hitler, and he has served Hitler many thousand soldiers from Albania and Kosovo. And then we had Stalin, and then we had who are hating the West, hating capitalism and this and that, and they are helping the Islamic jihadists. And then we have the extreme right also. Don't only blame the left, also blame the extreme rightists, because anti-Semitic union they have, they are helping each other. I remember Ahmadinejad was a very funny president of the regime. He made a conference against Israel, and then you know who attended that conference? The old Ku Klux Klans and the extreme rightist people, and also some jihadist Jews who hated Israel as a state. They say Israel should take the whole world. So it's not the first time that you are uniting these evil ideologies. So what I am blaming the West, and I'm happy that as a Norwegian citizen, I'm very active in the Labour Party. I'm a member of the Central Board of the International Forum. And I really shut their mouth and they say that you are doing the same thing that those extreme rightists did with Hitler, and those extreme communists like Iranian Tudeh Party, who made the founder of the Tudeh Party, one of the founders, in the jail, he wrote a letter that Khomeini is the real successor of Marx and Engels. He said it, he has a book, and he died in the prison. So this is not the first time that we have these devil ideologies. But my solution is to unite. We should not give in. We should not give in. We have been 3 ambassadors who defected the embassy. They killed 2 of us, one in Switzerland in 1990 and the second one in Italy. I never give up. We have to do this because we have to clean up this mess, and the Muslims themselves, they should clean it up. Islam has not been reformed. Some of the philosophers like Rumi, like Hafiz, they have been reformists in their ideologies, but they have never been a reformist organization, but we have now in Iran growing also. We have to join in order to do away with this fourth, I can tell, a most horrible ideology of jihadism. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Eric Gifford, and I'm not on the left. You said something that made me very curious, because I've also read a bit in the Quran and a bit of Islamic history. And I'm convinced of one thing, and that is Allah is not going to send another prophet, and he's not going to change the Quran, not even a comma. In a couple of years, it's going to be exactly like it is today, with all its mistakes and all its faults. So, conclusion of that is that Islam cannot be reformed. The few people who have been trying that over the last 1,400 years, they ended up a head shorter. And yet you talk about reforming Islam. Now that is a very dangerous notion, because some politicians, some prime ministers, some minister from the justice might listen to you, and they will tell you that we have nothing to worry about because Islam can be reformed. You must stop saying that.
She's not saying that. She's just. Can I just, because I read the book. I read the book, so I can just say she's not saying that. She's saying that the ex-Muslims and the people who calls themselves reformists and attacking Islam, their religion, and they say we are Muslim, but we are attacking our religion. They hated by the other Muslims. She said that they are in our side, in the West side.
Because I can't
am
have.
I right?
Yes, because
It's not that
I mean,
you are defending
for
the...
me, as a person that doesn't believe in any religion, it is, for me, religion is something made up by people, right? So if Muslims can make up a religion called Islam that is a reformed form of Islam, I cannot really get upset about that. I don't care if they do it, let them do it. If they can't do it, they can't do it. We have like 6 billion?
They go up every year.
Yeah, billion Muslims. And if we don't think that one kind of percentage of those will try to hold on to some parts of their culture, Islamic culture or religion, and then call themselves Rumi meditation Muslims, I think it will happen. I think there will be some parts of Muslims who will say, we just dance around in our dresses and say Allah, Allah, and you know, if that's what Islam is going to be in the future, maybe, I don't know. I'm not a prophet. I cannot say what's going to happen. But I can say that I am going to support people who criticize Islam the same way that I criticize mainstream Islam. The mainstream theology that is, you know, hating women, hating Jews, hating homosexuals, wanting everybody to be killed of these three groups. So I can't really oppose Majid Nawaz for wanting to reform Islam. I'm also critical of Majid Nawaz because I tell him, why? How will you do it? When is it going to happen?
Islam
Do
cannot
you
do
have
it.
an alternative theology? Because this is, of course, a theological matter as well. If you want to reform Islam, you have to have a theological version that is different from the literalist version. And this is, of course, where you probably have your problems with the Zudi Jasser and others, because they don't really present an alternative theologically. And this is, of course, maybe because they're not strong enough, they're not organized enough, and so on. But I don't want to tell them, oh, you will never reform Islam, because I hope you will. But as long as you say the same things and you challenge the literalists the same way that I challenge the literalist approach to Islam, I don't have a problem with Muslim reformers, and they're my allies.
They are not
Yeah.
our enemies, and they are okay. But we will have a discussion about 2 weeks. It is about, can Islam be reformed? With the right people. It's not this book is about actually. Last question. With only question 2 we can get. With comments, please don't. Question. Okay, these two.
I have to.
Yeah, Janet have to catch a flight. You can just leave, Janet. Excuse me for that.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I wonder if I can encourage you to put some constructive ideas forward about what can be done. Could we base society on some common values? Should we be more strict using criminal laws when things are happening in the homes, like forcing people to marry people they don't want to marry, etc.? Should we be basing our common values perhaps on the UN Human Rights Declaration? And who should be in the forefront of doing something constructive about the problems with Islam?
Thank you. Can I?
Yeah.
I believe that Western countries will do this one day, but when, I don't know what they will do. They have to make laws. They have to change some things. Maybe UN is not accepting, but they have to change some things. For example, they have to think, is that okay with the religion of freedom of belief or not? Like, for example, child hijab. Is it okay with that or not? So they have to take one, like the FGM. Before they allowed, but they then make it law, and now it's strictly forbidden in every country. Although they are doing in still West. they have to come with laws, and these laws will not be the same one, of course. They have to reconcile, I believe they have to reconcile even the freedom of religion.
But
What
also
does mean that, and where is the limit? How much thing we can accept? I believe they have to do that.
in some cases we have to have stricter laws, more strict laws, and in some cases just apply the same law to Muslim brown people as you would apply it to white Christian background people in your countries. Because, for instance, I'm a foster parent, so we have to go to 2 courses a year, and every time I choose to go to the courses about ethnic minorities, and in there you can hear that this is the social workers telling us themselves. They say, when a Danish child gets hit by their parent, the social authorities go in right away and almost take the child away almost immediately. When this happens in a Turkish family, nothing happens because it's so common to hit your child in a Turkish family. So you wait until there are broken, they have broken an arm or a leg, then you can go in as a social authority in that case. This is treating the brown children, the Muslim children, differently than the white children, because you just think, okay, it's normal, you beat your child. And also in reports, and this is also in my book, in the reports about, there are, for instance, in my book, I quote a report that is about finding out violence in families and so on. And then they, in the conclusion, right, we know that there are more violence in foreign ethnic two-languaged families, and this is of course most Muslim families. But this is sometimes we think it's culturally accepted and therefore it's not as hurtful. We think nothing logical. I mean, what? Then why are you working against violence in the family if it's culturally accepted and you think they love their children? It should apply, the same should apply to the Danish families. Why do you, like, what is happening? If hitting your child is wrong, then it shouldn't matter what color the child is. It should be wrong, and you should be critical against hitting your child. And this is, of course, something that is going on, and people are treated differently because they're just it's just accepted that these problems are there, and yeah.
And I believe today's values, modern values in the West, have been made it before Islam arrived here. I believe really that can we include Islam in the same line with the Christianity? This is a discussion you have to take. But I believe only that, like she talked about critical reading or critical writings in the schools and something. We don't need even that state will have the critical writings about Islam in the school books or something. We don't need that. We need only the truth. They have to show the truth to Muslims. This is very easy, very, very easy. We don't need to make any laws. I was an Islamist. I believe in everything that Islamists do today. I changed. Why? Because somebody criticized and confronted me every time with things, and I have to go and read it. When I read it, I find it's very stupid, my religion, in the end. Because this is a lie, this is not religion, this is many contradictions. At least Western have to let us, Islam critics, ex-Muslims, confront and expose Islam. This we want, nothing more. Just let us, we believe the common sense, we believe the Muslims, that they will find, when they find the truth, they will leave Islam. And there is no reformation. Many people have tried. We have Quran, even the new Quran, like the Quranist people have made it. They call this like blasphemy. the majority of Muslims calling the Quran, this Quran made it like reformate. It's calling they blasphemy. They killed even the man who made it that, Rashad Khalifa. So a lot of problems. Western have to learn. We have to finish, but before that, I want to give a gift to you. This is Walid El-Kubaysi's book. More than 20 years ago, he wrote it. He writing 8 letters to his father after he come to the Norway, because then he find that all his beliefs was a lie. So he writing 8 letters to his father, and this be one book. Its name is The Half Moon's Secrets of Half Moons. Half Moon's Hemmeligheter.
Thank you.
And we have Blasphemy is Not a Crime T-shirts to you and your husband.
Yes, thank you.
and thank you for that you being here today with us.
Thank you.
And I recommend you to buy her book. It's in downstairs. She will be downstairs right now and sign.
Yes. Thank you very much.
So thank you for coming, and see you next seminar, 9th of September. Thank you.